morning. Let's start. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being there. It's a pleasure being here with you today. Welcome to this introduction to quantum technologies. Welcome to our home. Please make yourself comfortable. Feel yourself at home. And I can tell you that you are the best audience we had so far today for this presentation. So thank you very much for being there. We will, as you can see on the screen, we have a presentation that lasts about an hour, something like that. You can use the platform to send your questions. And during the presentation, we'll make some polls with some questions that you can answer using the platform as well. So first of all, I would like to introduce all my colleagues. So Ines, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ines Lopez, and I have a degree in natural sciences with a final project in quantum cryptography. I've always been fascinated by weird and crazy things, and there's nothing weirder or crazier than quantum.
Thank you, Ines. Victor?
Hi there, this is Victor Gaspar. I work in the International Markets Department, and I am a computer scientist, and I like quantum computing, so I hope you enjoy the presentation too.
Thank you, Victor. Enrique?
Hello. I'm Enrique Crespo, working in GMB Secure Solutions. I study mathematics, one of the many mistakes in my life. I would like to share many other ones I have done, but not in a brown bag. So I will provide to you a short overview of current status of post-quantum cryptography. Don't be afraid, I'm not coming to mathematical details, but only you to have a clear idea and understanding of topics around this amazing point. Thank you very much for attending this brown bag.
Thank you very much, Enrique. Well, I'm Pedro Lopez. After completing my PhD on computer science, I studied natural science at the Open University. And there I learned that quantum computing can break classical computing. So as one of my passions is breaking things, this is the reason why I think I love quantum technologies. So let's start. Today we are going to talk about quantum technologies. I think that's an area very interesting for everybody, as is thought to be one of the greatest breakthroughs in the near future. And for a company such as GMV, this is clearly one of the areas that is of great interest. So first of all, Ines will make a quick introduction to the physics behind the quantum technologies. Then Victor will use a simulator of a quantum computer to show us how the quantum computation works. Then we will see how quantum technologies can be used for cryptography, a new type of cryptography. Enrique will talk about post-quantum cryptography that we can implement just with classical computers. And finally, I will talk briefly about the future. So that's it. Then Ines, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pedro. First, I will briefly introduce some of the science behind quantum technologies. But first of all, I want to know a bit about what you already know. So please answer with what concepts of quantum technologies sound familiar. Okay, you have 20 seconds to answer. Five seconds left. Well, I'll leave a couple more seconds as it seems as most of you are still on it. Okay, since most of you are done, I will leave it here. Okay, here are the results. 58% of you have heard about wave-particle duality and Heisenberg's uncertainty. 73% about Schrodinger's cat and superposition. Of course, that's one of the most well-known concepts in quantum technologies. 33% about entanglement isn't as well known, and 36% about qubits and quantum supremacy. And 24% of you haven't heard about any of the concepts mentioned before. But don't worry, I will quickly get you up to speed on these concepts. Okay. Now you're seeing my screen. Perfect. Okay, first of all, I will start with some of the physics background behind quantum physics. Quantum physics first arises to explain some observations we had previously made, starting with one which may look familiar, which is the spectral lines atoms produce when they absorb or emit photons in order to jump in between energy levels. This didn't quite go with what we had previously expected, as we would expect it to be a continuous spectrum in which we could see all the colors. And here's where actually the name quantum comes from, as it means a particular amount. The next observation is that of a double slit experiment, and it goes something like this. Imagine we have some photons which go through one of two slits. We would expect them to end at one of 2 points, as you can see on your screen. However, we actually get photons in a third point also, and how can that be? Well, it's actually because we have something known as wave-particle duality. That is, photons behave both as a particle and as a wave at the same time. These two observations clashed with the classical notion that we could determine exactly what was going to happen at any given moment. And it is where the concept of quantum physics is born, contrary to classical physics. It is very different to what we're used to, and for sure clashes with our everyday understanding of everyday situations and logic. So don't worry if it sounds like Greek to you. It probably sounds like Greek to us too. I will now explain the 3 most important concepts behind quantum physics. They're very important and are really the ABC for the rest of the presentation, so please pay attention. The first is superposition, and it is explained using Schrodinger's famous thought experiment, which goes like this. Imagine we put a cat in a closed box. In that box, we include a particle, a radioactive substance, that if it has a 50% chance of decaying and killing the cat in the next hour. After that hour has passed, how do we know if the cat is alive or dead? Well, we actually can't know unless we open the box. Whilst the box is still closed, the cat is not alive nor dead, according to quantum physics. It's both alive and dead. It's not until we open the box that the cat becomes one or the other. So congratulations, our curiosity has just literally killed the cat. This concept, in which objects can be in 2 states at once, is known as quantum superposition and is expressed as the sum of both states. The next important concept in quantum physics is that of uncertainty, and is explained by Heisenberg's formula, which basically says that we can't know with an exact degree of certainty both the position and the momentum of a particle at the same time, as we would have a certain error associated with it. However, this value of the constant is so small that we don't see it in our everyday lives. And that is a really good thing, actually, because if not, our maps would look something like this. However, this is very observable at a microscopic level and very important for quantum physics. And last, but certainly not least, entanglement. Entanglement is a characteristic of quantum physics in which 2 particles become linked as if they're 2 parts of a whole. Now, the wave functions are not dependent the one on the other. As you can see, their general wave function is not a product of their individual wave functions. When they're in this state, if you know the state of one of the 2 particles, you can know the state of the other without looking at it. And it is what happens with Bell states and also with 2 electrons spinning in the same orbit. This may sound familiar. One has an upward spin and one has the opposite downward spin. Applying these 3 concepts to computing gives us what is known as the quantum bit or the qubit, which instead of working like a classical bit in which we have the determinant values of 0 and 1, we can have any combination of the 2, even having an imaginary dimension. And it's not until we measure it that it becomes or 0 or 1 with a certain probability, as you can see here. It's kind of like a coin spinning, that whilst it's spinning is neither heads nor tails, but when it falls, it becomes or head or tails. Applying these concepts and using the concept of superposition, we can actually perform operations much faster than we're used to. For example, if we wanted to look for a solution in a tree, we could look for a solution in all the branches at the same time, meaning we could look at the solution in the whole tree. In the same time, it would take a classical computer to look for the solution in just one branch. This is exponentially faster, which means n qubits can perform as fast or as much as 2 to the power of n classical bits. This difference is huge. However, there is a slight disadvantage. Whilst with a classical computer, we're 100% certain we have found the right solution, with a qubit or with a quantum computer, we're only with a certain degree of probability have found the right solution. So we had to check multiple times. So how many qubits do we need to overcome the world's most powerful supercomputer? Well, technically, the answer is 49 qubits. Achieving a problem that no classical computer can do in any amount of feasible time is known as quantum supremacy. And you may have heard of it because Google actually announced it had achieved this. And with a computer with 53 qubits, it had performed an algorithm in 200 seconds that, according to them, would take a classical computer 10,000 years. However, IBM refuted this statement, saying it wouldn't take a classical computer 10,000 years, but 2 days. So the difference wasn't that as big. It's still an ongoing race between the biggest technological giants. And this situation may seem familiar to any of you who have children, which looks something like this. Now, what will we be actually able to do when we do have a super quantum computer? That I leave to Victor. Hi, Victor. We can't hear you.
Now, thank you, Ines. During the following minutes, we're going to see a brief introduction to quantum computing. I'm going to use a really simple problem and a quantum simulator, and we are going to run this problem in a quantum simulator. Okay? But first, let us do a small poll to assess your knowledge on quantum computing. Let me share with you the poll. You have around 20 seconds to answer the poll. Okay. Give around 5 seconds more. Okay, I'm closing the poll now and showing the results. Okay, it seems many of you have some kind of working knowledge with quantum computers, and some of you clearly have no idea, and so no worries, because this is a research area, and very few people know about quantum computers in the world. So let's get up to speed with that. Okay, let me show my screen now. Okay. Okay. Quantum computing might sound like science fiction, but as you will see, the future is closer than you may think. Okay. The first problem that was created artificially to show quantum speedup was what it's called the Deutsch oracle. Okay. It was created by David Deutsch in 1985. Okay, and shows how quantum computers can outperform classical computers. Okay, the idea behind this Deutsch oracle is that we have a black box. In this black box, we have one of 4 possible functions. Okay, we could have the identity function. The identity function is a function that no matter that if you input a value, the same value is output by this function. Okay. Then we could also have the negation function. That is a function that if you enter a value, for example, a 0 to this function, the output is going to be 1, the bit 1. We also could have two more possible functions, constant 0 or constant 1. Constant 0 is a function that no matter the input to this function, the output is always going to be 0. And constant 1 is a function that if you enter, no matter which value you enter into the function, the output is always going to be 1. Okay, and the Deutsch oracle wants to know whether the function inside the oracle, inside this black box, is constant or variable. Okay, let's take a look. It doesn't want to know which function is inside the black box, but if the function inside is constant or variable. Okay, constant functions are constant 0, constant 1. Variable function or balanced functions are identity and negation. Okay, this is a classical experiment of quantum query complexity. Okay, in a classical computer, it would take 2 queries to know if the function inside is constant or variable. Okay, how would we do it in a classical computer? Okay, we would input the value 0 to this black box, and the output could be 0 or 1. If the output is 0, for example, if we input a 0 and the output is 0, the function inside could be identity or constant 0. So we still don't know if the function inside is constant or variable. Okay. If we input a second value, so we input a second query, we perform a second query to the oracle, and we input the value 1, and the output is 0, we are in front of a constant 0 function. So the black box, inside the black box, there is the constant 0 function, and we know that, therefore, in this experiment, that the value, the function is constant. Okay, the function inside is constant. How many queries would it take on a quantum computer? Well, in a quantum computer, what David Deutsch proved some years ago is that we only need 1 query. Okay. How it looks like this quantum program in a quantum simulator. Okay, it would look like in a graphical representation using quantum gate notation. It would look like something like that. Okay, where we have 2 qubits input, 2 inputs, 2 qubits. We have 3 gates. We use 3 types of gates: bit flip operator, the Adamar gate that saves this bit in a quantum state. Then we would have our unknown function, also the function we want to know if it's constant or variable. Then again the Hadamard gate, and then again a measurement. Okay. What the Deutsch oracle says is that if the function inside this black box is constant, the output state outside, so after measurement, the state will be 1, 1. If the function inside the Deutsch oracle, inside the oracle, is variable, the measurement would be 0, 1. Okay. Now, with this basic knowledge of this program, what we are going to do is run this program in a simulator. Okay. This is the quantum simulator of the Technical University of Delft. Okay. It's called the Quantum Inspire. Okay. This is a project where you can register for free and you can run your experiments on it. On the left side of the screen, what we can see is the source code of this Deutsch oracle program. Okay, this is a language called Quantum Assembler. On the bottom of the web page, what we can see is the graphical representation of this source code. Okay, if we modify the source code, we will see that it automatically modifies the graphical representation. Okay. On the right side, we can select which backends we can run this program on. So, for example, we could run it like we are going to do in the simulator. But the Technical University of Delft also offers for free for registered users. It also offers a 5 qubits physical hardware and 2 qubits physical hardware. So a real quantum computer. Okay. with this with configuration like that, with the source code like that, what we have inside the black box is a constant one function. Okay, this is the bit flip operator. This is what represents a constant one function inside the black box. And if we remember about the Dodge Oracle, if the function inside the black box is constant, the measurement will be 1, 1. Let's run the experiment and let's see what is the output of this program. Okay, we run the experiment. We wait a few seconds until the experiment is executed. And we show the results, and the results, as was predicted by Dodge, is 1, 1. Okay, this is the result of this experiment. If we change the function inside the Oracle, and we change it to a variable function, for example, this is the C0 gate, the control not gate, quantum gate, that represents the identity function. Okay, and we run the experiment. We call it number 2 experiment. We run it. We go to the results. We wait a few seconds until the job is finished. You must, the experiment is just finished, and the answer is 0, 1. Okay, therefore, has Dodge Oracle states the function inside the Oracle is variable. Okay. Okay. With that, what is right now the state of the art? Okay, this is from a mathematical point of view, the operations behind a quantum computer are proven. Okay, theoretically, this type of quantum computers can exist. Mathematically, it is proven. But now we have an engineering problem. We need to build these quantum computers. Okay, to build these quantum computers, we need to solve certain problems. Currently, there are several technologies. There is not a standard. There are at least 7 technologies to build a qubit. Okay, there are startups, but also there are huge enterprises like IBM or Google on this field trying to build the best performing quick qubits. Okay. Currently, technology has some limitations. Okay, one of those is that we need superconducting materials to work to build those qubits, and therefore we need to lower temperatures close to 0, to the 0 absolute 0. We need to isolate the quantum computer in a room that the environment does not affect the quantum computations. Okay, the time. This is what calls the coherence time. The time during in which the quantum computer stays in a quantum state is called coherence time. Okay, the longer the coherence time, the more computer operators we can perform. Okay, so those two measures are always going to be, those two limitations are going to be related. Okay, we also need to correct errors. You will see on the news that they are talking about thousands of qubits. Also about a few tens of qubits. This is always, they are always talking about physical qubits versus logical qubits. To build a computer with a few tens of qubits, we need a few thousands of qubits. Okay, and these error corrections reduces the number of logical qubits, so the qubits that we can profit for doing calculations. Okay, we also have another limitation with quantum computers that are probabilistic in nature. In quantum computers, you need to run the experiment several times to receive a correct value. Okay. Therefore, in the future, probably we are going to live with those two kinds of computers. So quantum computers are not going to substitute classical computers. Probably they will coexist in a future, and some operations are going to be run in a classical computer, and some other operations are going to be run in a quantum computer. Okay. Also, doesn't exist a memory for quantum computers, so they can only process data. They cannot store data, so we don't have memories for it. Okay. In the news, since say 90s, the beginning of the 90s, Shor, the discovery on a theoretical computer It's called the Shor algorithm. At that point, quantum computer was of interest for national security because Shor algorithm proves mathematically that classical encryption or asymmetric encryption can be broken. Okay, reducing the time we need to break asymmetric key from trillions of years to a few seconds. Okay, so this introduces a problem in our communications, in our security, and the security of our data. Okay. Now I leave you to Ines, who is going to show you how we can solve this problem that quantum computers introduce.
Thank you very much, Victor. Well, now I will speak a little bit about quantum cryptography. But first, I want to know how much you care about the protection of your secrets. So please answer this poll. Okay, we have 5 seconds left. Perfect. Well, here are your answers. I can see that many of you are very realistic about the current situation with data protection, but nonetheless, working in a company so focused on technology and cybersecurity, I'm sure you're very interested in knowing how we can fix this error or this breach Victor just told us about. So I will now tell you a little bit about it. Okay, well, in true quantum fashion, quantum cryptography or quantum computing both breaks and makes our encryption. While Shor breaks classical cryptography, quantum cryptography offers a new way of securing our information. And this is done through the distribution of a key, which is known as quantum key distribution, around 2 people. One, let's call her Alice, and another, let's call him Bob. And it goes something like this. Alice sends Bob photons with value of either 0 or 1, polarized either rectilinearly or diagonally. Bob then measures them also in his own arbitrary or random direction. Okay? Now let's imagine we have someone called Eve who's trying to intercept their data. Eve will have to both guess what direction Alice is sending the photons in and what direction Bob is then going to measure them in. This gives us 4 different combinations, indistinguishable due to superposition. And measuring these states disturbs this superposition. Now, to see if their data has been intercepted, Alice and Bob can do a simple check. Once they have sent enough photons, they can communicate over a classical public channel and only store those bits in which they chose the same base. Out of all the bits they've sent, they compare a small percentage of them. And if they have over a 25% error rate, that means their data has been intercepted and they must discard the key and start again. The process I just described is known as the BB84 protocol, which is the oldest, the first protocol to be developed, but the most important one by far. The second one would be Eckert's protocol, which also implements entanglement, as I explained before, making it easier to or better at detecting any interceptions, but harder to implement. I've also indicated some of the other protocols being developed with different sizes depending on their importance and how well developed they are. As you can see, some can be more general, applicable to any situation, and some are more specific, only applicable to certain situations. Once these protocols had been proven to be regularly secure in theory, we had to implement them practically. The first implementation was actually done through free space in 1992 by the same creators who had created the BB84 protocol. We've come a long way since then, actually managing to send or to distribute a key using both Ecker's protocol and the BB84 protocol over the 144 kilometers between the isles of La Palma and Tenerife. We are also working on implementing them through optic fiber, as you can see here. However, this is much harder as it involves using various physical devices, and this is where the problems actually arise. Whilst these protocols are infallible at a theoretical level, at a practical level, hackers can try to attack the physical devices and actually block them or even intercept the key. Nevertheless, we have managed to send a key through 300 kilometers of optic fiber, so it's a pretty valid solution, an alternative. We have also been developing industrial implementations, which are working on developing the different components for a network with a final objective of obtaining something known as the quantum internet. They first started being developed in 2004, in which they tested various nodes over various locations. And this set the groundwork to develop our first ground-to-satellite network, which was done with the Quest space mission. This mission managed to send a video call over 7,600 kilometers from Austria to China. And they are aiming to obtain a worldwide network by the year 2030 using 10 satellites. The European Space Agency is also heavily betting in this area, developing their own Euro quantum communication infrastructure. We are also working on developing ground networks, such as Tokyo Network, which uses 3 layers of encryption to secure information on different platforms and can be used for smartphones, for example. But it is very important to develop the cheapest and the least amount of detectors possible to implement these networks, such as the one I've shown here. Last but not least, we have commercial implementations, which have actually been tested in real-world situations. They first started in 2004 with a bank transfer between 2 banks in Vienna. So this is not new to us. However, this proves to be a good solution to protect our data, our passwords, and our credit card information. Another solution is that which was developed in the 2010 World Cup, which most of you will probably know because La Roja won it. But actually, in that World Cup, quantum cryptography was used to secure our communications. So it wasn't only a win for La Roja, it was also a win for quantum key distribution. Also, it has been used in the Swiss national elections since the year 2007. And the company which offers the solution, known as ID Quantic, also offers it as a commercially available solution on their website. But these are not by far the only implementations there are, and there are literally endless and only limited by our imagination. Another possible implementation is with cloud, where quantum cryptography can offer an extra layer of security, so we are able to communicate with an untrusted database without any fear. Nevertheless, these implementations do not come without their problems, the 3 main ones being the ones exposed here. One of them is the key rate. Our current key rate transmission is very, very slow and insufficient for our current communication needs. So we're working on this. Also, costs. As I mentioned, we need to implement physical devices, fiber optics, and also cooling to keep the systems to a reasonable temperature. All of this costs a lot of money, and we're working on reducing these costs to the minimum. One of the solutions being proposed is using the same optic fiber we're using for classical communications. And last but not least, imperfections. As I mentioned before, quantum cryptography is infallible to a theoretical level. However, we use a lot of physical devices which have actually been tested, and hackers have tried to attack them. And some of the attacks have even proven effective and have actually intercepted the code. So we really have to work on these three areas in order to have a working solution. Nonetheless, I do believe it will be a valid solution, and we're working towards fixing these problems in time for when we have quantum computers. So this will prove a new solution for encryption needs. However, it's not the only solution available, as Enrique will now show you.
Hello, Ines. Thank you very much for your introduction. Okay, now we are going to move to this part of the presentation. And first of all, as have done my colleagues before, I would like to ask you a question. It's a question, of course. So let me. Okay, here it is. Take your time to respond. Okay. A couple of seconds more. I think this is getting interesting. Okay, I think that we have a number enough to take interesting conclusions. Let me share my screen. Okay, I think now you can see the screen. Okay, so let's go on. I've seen the responses that you are not very likely with cats. Maybe this is something that deserves a specific bound for this, but not too much knowledge about post-quantum cryptography. Okay, I cannot feel disappointed about this. I know this is complex, and let's try if we can fix this a little bit. So first of all, what I would like just to introduce here and to start a dialogue, if you think it's possible, interesting, is to clarify some very important and specific basic concepts. So first of all, is that post-quantum cryptography is not specific and new in any sense. In fact, it's basic and classic mathematics that is being used for this very specific purpose. In previous years, it was a classical decision that everything was done because from many years ago we have RSA and DCA to handle these topics. But now it is not the case. It is clear from previous presentation that the time life of these algorithms seems to get shortened because of source algorithms. So we have to start thinking and be prepared for when this really comes to happen. What it is very important to view is that these specific methods, code-based, lattice, hash-based, multivariate, it's mature mathematics, very complex mathematics, but do not misunderstand the mathematical layer with the security prototypes, schemes, and protocols that are being built upon them. This is very important because there is a lot of discussion in the scientific community in order to reach an agreement about what level of scientific maturity it is needed to reach a common agreement to use these algorithms, these methods in different environments. So these are the mathematical methods that are currently under discussion in the last round of the NIST, the National Institute for Standardization and Technologies, the Minister of Commerce of the United States. And we can take a look at the consortiums that are being under current competition. Even if you can see with alternate candidates, do not come into confusion. It is possible that the final decision throws 1, 2, 3, several solutions to be chosen because of these different environment, these very different mathematical layers, and these very different levels of different implementations that will arise for this purpose. Don't misunderstand because of the funny names of any of these consortiums, Saber, Bike, whatever it is. Some of them are private companies, are strong consortiums with public universities and private companies, very important ones. We shall come later on taking some inside look into what the consortiums are looking like, really. And these consortiums are working on the protocols, the mathematical layer, okay, this is a very important point, the protocol, the layer, the scheme that has been to be developed to reach key agreement, confidentiality, and so on. And there's a lot of discussion here. The community, the international community, has to go on paying specific attention, investigation to all of these many different schemes to ensure formal security. So this is very important. And we shall come later on with this very point. So, funny names, but behind very strong investigations layers and interests of private companies to develop and gain a strong position to try to use one of these mechanisms. And this is very important. And this is another very important feature. Really think of the change. Take vision of what we are talking about. In 40 years, we have been using RSA and DCA, no discussion. The whole international community has been making investigation, attack, improvements, efficient implementations of 2 basic cryptographic primitives to rule the node, if you want. These old-timers have done really good. And now, by first time, at a different level, because with Richen there was something like that, but not at all with the same impact. And now we are talking about choosing a method or different methods to do what these old-timers have been doing. We have a bunch of rookies telling us that they are good for everything. This is not true. The previous algorithms had the capability, were flexible enough to, in a very easy way, to be able to provide digital signature scans, public encryption, key agreement, and so on. But what you can see here in this slide is that not all of these methods are so well prepared, so flexible enough to be able to implement in a easy, transparent, easy to follow, easy to investigate, easy to analyze way, these all different mechanisms. So some of them are very efficient for some specific purposes, for some specific environments, but not at all, just to move to another different level of protocols and mechanisms. And this is a very important feature. And think of the change, because this is an important point. For the first time, we are discussing about 40 years of investigation on 2 algorithms to be changed to what has to be investigated, maybe on 2, 3, 4 different candidates that will have to be chosen, absolutely different one each other. And the efficient implementations, the security matters, this is better for this, whatever, is all to be done. Don't think that when this finish is computation round, everything is done. We are done. No. This is the first step, but now comes the following ones, the big challenge or the big points to be considered. First of all, as you can think, it's easy to understand, scientific maturity. We have the whole community focused on 2 algorithms. Now we have the international community split up among different algorithms. Think about the positive tension between different countries trying to provide a solution, and think about trust. Will you be able to accept implementations or protocols that maybe, honestly, you cannot understand the keys inside about its proper functionality just to be implemented in your sector of defense or banking? Think about the time it takes to standard and normative sectorial accreditation, purpose-specific, technical topics we have to be aware in advance for technical integration. Very important. This is a matter of business. This is nothing new. This is not mathematical. This is not science. This is business. If the market acceptance of these protocols is fast enough, there will be investigation and we'll go on this way. But now we have many different ones. How will work the market acceptance on this topic? Because before, there was no discussion about this. You have RSA, you have DSA, go on with this. You have nothing else to choose, up to you. But now, the portrait, the picture is absolutely different. And of course, if you were talking about maturity, you have to come through your own disaster. You cannot talk about maturity because everything is of pink color and life is nice and full of roses. Remember Roca, return of Coppersmith attack, hardly 2 years ago. So let's say that these two old-timers have done really good. They have to be honored as they deserve, but we have to change. So this, in some sense, has never happened, that you have to change. So, but interesting also, about this. Let's look at the consortiums. Who is who? Okay, of course, you have America, Canada, Israel, but taking a closer look into Europe, finally, it's what we would like to know. We can see, as expected, nothing new under the Spanish thumb, let's say in this way, two main countries, France and Germany, leading most of the consortiums of the candidates that are in the list, and also the Netherlands leading two specific German consortiums. What it is very, very different from previous round of competition for Rigendel, for sure you were following night by night, expected to do, is the very heavy weight of the private industry in all and each of these consortiums. You have American giants, you have Infineon, Orange, and many Microsoft Research, Amazon Web Services, and specific universities like the one of Graz, that as soon as they develop and understand something, put in the market their own implementation. So, I mean, this is a serious touch of attention. This seems to be that this is not a game of mathematical weights, guys, thinking about what should be better to do, but an important point of interest for industry. These companies, for example, there are permanent companies of French government and blockchain companies, also in German government, and so on. So it seems to be that the guys interested of these protocols to be implemented as soon as possible and in an efficient way is important. So this is absolutely different also, related with previous consortiums. This is absolutely new, but gives you an important idea of who is who. Finally, just another point of usual confusion, of misunderstanding when talking about this. I think Victor has said before in some sense that do not think that this will come through isolated phases, A, B, C, D, no quantum, post-quantum, quantum. No, this is much more complex, and the transition periods will be linked one each other in many different ways. So as also Ines has said, the theoretical point of view can be perfect, marvelous, and we can believe it or not, it's up to us. But later on, this has to be implemented in real environments, in specific environments. It will have to be subjected to deep, mature evolution steps. Nothing is perfect. So let's see that from post-quantum cryptography to quantum key distribution, we are not talking about pure cryptographic quantum mechanisms. There will be several steps to do. But the first step, the first mistake in which you can fall, as I have done many in my life, is to think that we are not concerned about this. So let's move to a view to the future. Now Pedro Lopez will tell us what is expecting to us, maybe in the next corner, maybe tomorrow. So Pedro.
Okay, thank you very much. I will take the presentation now. Okay, let me share the screen with you. Okay, I hope that you see my presentation now. Well, I hope you have seen the movie Back to the Future, because Enrique reminds me to talk, because he's talking about the future and he's telling us to get prepared. And I think he's right. I think he's right because, in fact, the future in information technology might be heavily impacted by quantum technologies. And I don't think that we want to meet the train. So this is one of the reasons why we must get prepared. And the other is that we have to prepare as well quantum safe cryptography if we don't want our secrets today to be revealed tomorrow. Everything that we can now have as secrets will be in the future known as soon as we have a quantum computer. Okay, let's start with the tool. Let me see if I can find it here. There it goes. Okay. What sector do you think quantum technology will affect? It's a multiple choice question. You can choose anything that you want. Okay. I will use some more seconds. Still moving. A lot of people still answering. Okay. I close the pool now, and I share the results. So, well, you can see that most of the people think that it will affect most of the sectors: aerospace, defense, information technology, transport, even my sexual life. So that's very interesting, and I think that, well, I do agree with the first four, and about the fifth, well, we will see. We'll see it in the presentation. Okay, let's carry on. Okay, what does Gartner say about quantum technologies? You can see here the Gartner hype cycle, and if you look at the quantum technologies, they are close to arriving to the peak of inflation. That means that in the near future, maybe, well, in the future, some of the expectations that we have for quantum technologies will not be valid. They will be inflated, they will disappear. Well, that's a good thing for me because I can tell you anything. I can tell you, for instance, that you can have a sexual life such as Julio Iglesias, and if it doesn't happen, then I will say that that was just inflated expectations. But what's the truth, really? Well, the truth is that we are in a new technology now. And there is a lot of research and development going on. You can see here a lot of areas where there is a lot of research going on, and the number of applications is still growing. Which of them we will really change our world? Well, we'll see. But what seems clear is that in 10 to 15 years' time, which is that we expect that we will have a quantum computer powerful enough, quantum will be part of our lives. Which are the countries that are investing more in quantum computing? Well, if everything we said so far just sounds like Chinese to you, maybe now you know the answer. You can see here that China is the country with more patents on quantum technologies. If you have a closer look, you can see that it has a lot of patents in quantum key distribution, okay? So this is the area where China is focusing now, but the States are focusing more on quantum computing. There are patents in quantum computing. In fact, if you see other companies to the right, you can see that there is a very different behavior. Chinese companies are sponsored by the States, and in the United States, you find a lot of very big companies, and as well a lot of startups with venture capital. So that's a different situation. And what about Europe? Well, in Europe, each country is doing its own research, and the European Commission has started a strategic research agenda for the quantum flagship. And this quantum research agenda has 4 main application areas, as you can see here in the presentation: communication, computing, simulation, and sensors. All of this is obviously supported by the basic science underneath. We'll see these 4 areas quickly. Let's start. Communications. Well, regarding communications, well, an important thing that I should mention is that this strategic research agenda is supported by the European Commission with 1 billion euros for 10 years, okay? Which is quite a lot. 1 billion, well, 10 to the power of 9 euros, okay? In communications, we have fiber optics for ground communications and satellites for satellite communications. And these communications are going to support both a network of quantum computers and the communication, encrypted communication that we have seen so far. In fact, as you have seen before, China has already launched some satellites, and Europe is in the phase A of studying a new satellite for quantum, well, network of satellites for quantum communications. Computing. Well, Victor just told us about the different technologies that exist for quantum computing, and these technologies are used by different actors to implement actual quantum computers. There is even Spanish companies such as Kilimanjaro, and then there is the University of Delft, Max Planck. A lot of actors are preparing now quantum computers. And in addition, obviously, the big ones such as IBM and Google are fighting for the quantum supremacy. Okay, let me get rid of this. The quantum supremacy, as you know, is when they show that a quantum computer is much more powerful than a traditional computer. Okay. What about simulation? Well, one of the first persons talking about quantum technologies was Feynman. Here you have a quote of Feynman. I don't know what he had in mind, but really Feynman was right when he was thinking that quantum technologies could have a great future, because quantum technologies can be used to simulate quantum processes. And this is very good to implement things like, well, to test small molecules and stuff like that. So new material can be tested using quantum technologies, and we can as well test drugs, new drugs. And the new drugs obviously are good for your life and maybe for your sexual life as well. Regarding sensors, well, quantum sensors are very powerful. They are very sensitive and they are used for a lot of applications. For instance, in the submarines, when they go underneath the water, they lose the GPS signal. And then what they use is accelerometers. They use accelerometers to keep the position. But after 24 hours underneath the water, when they get to the surface, the error is about 1 kilometer, which is quite a lot. Why? Because accelerometers are affected by mountains underneath the water and other stuff. But using quantum sensors with rubidium and laser and everything, they have tested that they can make a solution that has got only 1 meter error instead of 1 kilometer after 24 hours, which is very good. As well, with magnetic resonance, if we use quantum sensor for nuclear magnetic resonance, they have got much more information that they have normally. They can use this information to identify only one single protein, which is very good for medical diagnosis, obviously. In optics, well, the information that you have with each single pixel is much more rich than the one that you have with classical optics. And they plan to have a 3D image with only one camera. They plan as well to use entanglement to see one picture in another place, just by using entanglement. And there are a lot of more applications that are continuously appearing in those days. In these days here, with the situation that we have with COVID, they say that if we had a quantum computing, certainly we will have a vaccine in days. That would be very good for our health today. Maybe you have seen in the papers that some physicists have used a quantum computer to reverse the time, and using this experiment, they have neglected the butterfly butterfly supposition that everything will change if you touch anything in the past. They have refused it with the test that they have done. Well, I think that quantum technologies are very interesting. The future is challenging. And I think that that's very important for a company such as GMV, where we love challenges. This is an opportunity for innovation, and really the imagination is our limit. So I think that we can get to infinity and beyond with our imagination, applying new technologies. And that's the end of our presentation. When obviously this is a quantic presentation with in a quantic manner, we will answer your questions, and we'll both answer and not answer your questions at the same time, as obviously this is a quantic presentation. And now, while we read the questions in the platform, I leave you with some jokes. Okay. Okay, so we have some questions. Victor, we have a question about Jose Carlos. You want to answer it, please?
He's asking if we can use quantum computers to solve to solve a problem like the traveling salesman problem? The short answer is that you can use computers, quantum computers, to solve this kind of problems, but you cannot solve something practical right now. Okay, right now, optimal solutions can be better found with classical computers. In a few years, when technology improves and the number of qubits increases and the connection between qubits increases, we could have a speed up versus classical computers for optimal results of the travel salesman problem. But right now, you better put your money on classical computers.
Okay, thank you. Enrique, there is a question for you from Fernando La Varga. You read it?
Do we have the guarantee that when needs choose their best option, make its bet? This is the question.
Yes.
Okay, let me. This is a very clever question. So, one of the main topics that we have to understand is that each of these proposals in NIST are absolutely different one each other. It's mathematical layer, it's practical implementation, it's attacks, and so on. But be aware that the source algorithms just is focused on of big number factoring problem. This is what the security problem, the hardness problem of the RSA. How to factor a number that it is composed of very big prime numbers. Many of these algorithms, these candidates, are not based on these hardness problems. For example, lattice ones are based on the shortest vector problems, multivariate ones are based on biquadratic system of equations, and hash-based algorithms are based on the strongness of the hash functions. The scheme is much more complicated. Do not misunderstand the mathematical layer foundation with the scheme that these consortiums are proposing. But a source algorithm was able to make a very clever approach through the discrete Fourier transforms to find the period of the function to solve this problem. Who knows what a quantum computer could allow us to think in the future? So the game is very complex. The game is very complex, and plus, it will be the critical point to decision on this point. I hope I have responded to the question, because the question is a lot of complex.
Okay, I had a question previously that was, well, what GMV is doing in this area? Well, we are working a lot in several areas. We have already made some offers. For instance, we have done a proposal for the European Space Agency where they plan actually to use post-quantum cryptography in the new satellites. And actually, well, for instance, Galileo is thinking on using, for Galileo, second generation post-quantum cryptography as well. Well, there are other work that we are doing in other areas in defense as well, in space. Some of them are obviously confidential, so I don't want to go in more detail. We want to do as well we plan to do some research, and the research we plan to even to have a PhD student with us, because it's very important while working with quantum in the state of research that we are now. Obviously, what we need is to combine the knowledge of a lot of people, because quantum is at a very early stage, and we need to combine the knowledge of mathematicians, of physicists, of people that know of quantum computing, and in the area of research that we want to work on. It's very important to link very well all these people to have to get satisfactory results. So this is one part that we are working on. Well, we are as well working in several several consortiums, several organizations. For instance, Victor has prepared as work in Abitic. There is a paper that you can find on the internet, which is called La España Cuántica. Victor is one of the main authors of this paper. What it says, it tells us about what is the status of the quantum computing in Spain. Then we are working as well with the quantum industrial committee in Europe. We have a lot of contacts there, and we are planning to do some consortium to present some proposals. And well, there is a lot of work going on. So we are very active in this area, and I think that even if it is a very long way away, we have to keep moving now, and we will certainly do a lot of job in the future. Any more questions from now? Well, actually, we had a longer presentation with Victor. I had a longer presentation with all the details about quantum computing. It was even think in
someone made me cut the presentation because it was too long. If anyone has interest, write me and I can explain the inner details of the no worries.
Okay. More questions?
If anyone else wants to activate their microphone and ask a question through there, or simply have any comments or a joke maybe, we'd be more than glad to answer and laugh along with you.
We can go for lunch too.
Okay. Well,
so that's it. Thank you very much to everybody, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And anything that you want, we will be delighted to work with you, to chat with you. Please get in contact with us if you need it. We will be delighted to talk with you about quantum or anything else. And if you want to talk in any further detail, we are ready to provide you more information. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.